For today's video, I want to talk about my Solar 3.0 Hunter build, one of the best builds in Solar for Hunters in the game, at least in my opinion, currently in Season of the Haunted. So this build, I actually found out from ATP, or as some of you may know him, All the Players, so credit goes to him for showing me the build. But it's actually really fun, surprisingly. I typically was not a fan of Assassin's Cowl, but I decided to try it out because if he was doing it, then it must be at the very least fun. But it also turned out to be pretty good to use in the meta. So I'm going to go over the build today and show you guys why I think this is one of the best, if not the best solar build we have currently, until the artifact mods go away anyway. And then, you know, sandbox shakeup and all that. So let's get started from the top. We're going to be using Blade Barrage, of course, because it's just silly now. And then we're going to go into each separate thing on its own. Let's start with abilities. Abilities, your dodge, Gambler's Dodge, of course. In case you don't know, dodging your enemies fully recharges your melee ability. We don't want a gun reload, we want the melee ability reload. Now, jump doesn't matter, but typically people use triple jump or strafe jump. Really, that's the only two choices, at least for me. For your melee, you want to use Knife Trick. In other words, the old Blade Barrage melee, the one with 3 knives as you throw out. Let me just show you real quick in the game right here. Bang, like that. So, there's a couple of reasons to use this particular melee. First of all, it scorches. Second, it's a multi-projectile, so it throws 3 knives instead of just the one, so you can get multiple kills all at once. And finally, it also does great damage and a quick release, as opposed to, like, you know, a weighted knife. So this knife is really versatile, and I highly recommend you use this one. Then moving on, you can use any grenade you want. So you can use fusion if you want damage, or you can use a healing grenade if you want a I guess a little trump card in case you're about to die. Then, aspects, it really doesn't matter, but I personally thought just using these two on your mark and knock them down, just to have 5 fragment slots was the best way to go. And then going to fragments, so none of these are really mandatory, they just kind of flow together really nice, they have good synergy, so you could replace some of these if you want with others that you might be more familiar with. So starting at the top, we have Ember of Syrian, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. This is going to be all about your melee, so you want this on just to get plus 10 recov, and gives you bonus melee energy back. Then we have Ember of Torches, power melee attacks against combatants, make you and your allies nearby radiant. So basically, every time you get a melee kill, you're radiant, or when you're getting a kill, you're extending your radiance, and this also ties into Assassin's Cowl, which I'll get to in a second. Next, we have Ember of Empyrean, solar weapon, or ability final blows, extend the duration of restoration and radiant, effects applied to you. So again, you're using your knives, or your grenade, or solar weapons, and you're extending restoration and radiant, so consistently healing yourself and keeping your buff damage up. Next, we got Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. Remember how I said your melee scorches? There you go, more synergy. You want your class ability back as much as possible, because in the event that you lose out on your melee ability because you didn't get a kill with your knives, then at least you have a dodge to get it back again. Speaking of which, in case I didn't cover it, when you get a kill with your knife trick melee, you automatically get your melee back fully charged, and you can keep doing this over and over and over. As long as you do a little, like, 2-second cooldown in between kills, you will forever just keep getting melee back non-stop. And then finally, we have Ember of Wonder. This really is kind of just here for the plus 10 resilience, but you could slot it in for anything else if you'd like. But if you want to know what it does, rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. So you could use this with ignition artifact mods, such as Revitalizing Blast, for example. So now the question becomes, why are you using this with Assassin's Cowl? So, simply put, Assassin's Cowl says, powered melee final blows, grant invisibility, and restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful combatants increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. So basically what this means is every single melee kill will turn you invis, every single finisher will turn you invis, you get healing for a portion of your health and your shields, and you can continuously do this over and over non-stop until the enemy is dead, or you're dead and you just, like, jumped off a cliff or something. So given your Solar 3.0 build combined with Assassin's Cowl, this gives you a ton of survivability, and you get camo on a Solar subclass, which previously was just like, oh yeah, I'll just play Void Invis and just smoke myself for 800 million times. Now, you can do the same thing on Solar while having an offensive super and benefiting from Radiant for a damage buff and restoration because, you know, Classy Restoration is just the dumbest thing quite possibly ever invented in this game. Now, what mods would you use with this build? So, here we go. If you want to combine solar weapons into this build, which you can for Imperium, you could use Solar Siphon to get your super faster because you'll be making orbs of power with solar weapon final blows. Then, you can use Elemental Charge to become Charged with Light and insert using a high energy fire build, automatically giving you another damage buff when you're not Radiant, because every time you get a melee kill, you get a well. Why would you get a well? Because you'll be using Melee Wellmaker. So for those of you that don't know, powered melee combatant final blows spawn elemental wells matching your subclass energy type. So just imagine you killing a Thrall or a Scion or a Dreg or basically any red bar enemy that's not like a knight with a shield. You automatically kill it, get your melee back recharged. You are now Radiant, so you get a damage buff. You now get Restoration, so you're healing. You're now invisible, and you get a well, which you can trigger Fanta Might with to give you another damage buff on top of that, and now you're charged with light, so you get high energy fire whenever you want. Pretty silly, if I say so myself. By the way, Fanta Might, for those of you that don't know, pick up an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type, grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same elemental type. So when I mentioned using solar weapons, that's another tie-in to that. So for example, you could use a Vision of Confluence in this slot, or you could use Cartesian, or you could use the new bow, Stride and Whistle, and then for a heavy slot, the obvious option, of course, is Cataclysmic, but then you also have Galahorn and Lament, stuff like that. Very, very abusable. Now, this next mod is not mandatory by any means, but in terms of getting a 100 build, this will give you a lot of distance on that, and this is Powerful Friends. Basically, it's just there to give you your plus 20 mobility, but the perk also on top of it is actually kind of helpful. So when you become Charged with Light, which with Elemental Charge you can, you then give your nearby allies also becoming Charged with Light. So all of you would get high energy fire in this case. So that's pretty neat, but also the 20 mobility on top really, really helps. Then we have the last final remaining mod, or a couple mods actually, I should say, Classy Restoration. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. I'm sure everyone knows how busted this mod is. But the other two mods we have here is Utility Kickstart. So when your class ability energy is fully expanded, you gain class ability energy. This mod stacks so you can run more than one, and it's just there to get you your dodge back as fast as humanly possible. So between this, having 100 mobility, having 100 discipline, and having 100 resilience, you're basically the ultimate tank slash dodge recharge slash melee recharge build you could possibly be, and you change all these together to kind of flow and just give you non-stop damage buffs out the wazoo. Now, I should note the two things that you should go for absolutely for this build would be mobility and resilience. You don't need 100 discipline, but if you can obtain it, sure, why not? But the main key here is 100 mobility, because this decreases your class ability cooldown on top of utility kickstart, and of course resilience, because it's now the meta to just tank everything and get a 40% damage reduction buff to yourself. And that's it. Hopefully the footage on screen convinces you that it's both a fun and meta build, especially for things like dungeons. But in case you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment box below, and I'll try to answer that as much as I can. Other than that, thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, a like, sub, or a comment would be appreciated. Catch you guys in the next video. Also stream daily on Twitch, twitch.tv/SneakyBeaver. Link in the description, okay? I know that thing still exists. It's weird. YouTube is weird. Okay.